The unlikely savior. The massive starship Celestial Voyager drifted silently through the cosmic void, its sleek hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Captain Zorn stood on the bridge, his four eyes scanning the holographic displays surrounding him. The ship's crew, a mix of various alien species from across the galaxy, worked diligently at their stations. As the captain's gaze swept across the bridge, it lingered briefly on the only human aboard, Jack Cooper. The human sat in a corner, tinkering with a small device, seemingly oblivious to the complex operations around him. Zorn's upper eyes narrowed slightly. He still couldn't fathom why the Galactic Council had insisted on including a human on this crucial mission. Suddenly, a series of alarms blared through the ship. Red warning lights flashed across every console, bathing the bridge in an ominous glow. "Report," Zorn barked, his tentacles twitching with agitation. Chief Engineer Vexlor, a tall, insectoid alien, rushed to the main control panel. "Captain, we're experiencing a cascade failure in the quantum drive. The harmonics are destabilizing at an alarming rate." Zorn's exoskeleton paled. The quantum drive was the heart of their ship, allowing them to traverse vast distances through subspace. Without it, they'd be stranded in the depths of uncharted space. "Can you stabilize it?" Zorn demanded. Vexlor's mandibles clicked nervously. "We're trying, Captain, but the system is not responding to our commands. It's as if the drive has developed a mind of its own." As the crew scrambled to address the crisis, Jack looked up from his project, his eyes widening as he took in the scene. He stood up, approaching the captain hesitantly. "Excuse me, Captain Zorn," Jack said, his voice barely audible above the alarms. "I might be able to help." Zorn turned to face the human, incredulity evident in all four of his eyes. "You? What could you possibly do that our top engineers cannot?" Jack straightened his posture, meeting the captain's gaze. "I've worked with similar systems before. Sometimes, an outside perspective can spot something others might miss." The captain hesitated. The human had been nothing but a passenger so far, brought along as a gesture of goodwill towards Earth's recent inclusion in the Galactic Alliance. But now, faced with a potentially catastrophic failure, Zorn found himself considering the unthinkable. "Very well," Zorn said finally. "Show us what you can do, human." Jack nodded and moved swiftly to the engineering console. The alien crew members stepped aside, watching with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism as the human's fingers danced across the holographic interface. "The problem isn't in the drive itself," Jack muttered, his eyes darting across streams of data. "It's in the control systems. There's a feedback loop that's causing the harmonics to amplify exponentially." Vexlor leaned in, his compound eyes blinking rapidly. "Impossible. Our systems are designed to prevent such occurrences." Jack shook his head. "Under normal circumstances, yes. But look here." He pointed to a particular data stream. "There's an anomaly in the subspace field. It's subtle, but it's disrupting the normal failsafes." The human's fingers flew across the console, inputting a series of commands that seemed to defy the ship's standard protocols. The alien crew watched in stunned silence as Jack worked, his face a mask of concentration. Minutes ticked by, feeling like hours as the ship shuddered around them. Warning klaxons continued to blare, but Jack seemed oblivious to everything except the task at hand. Suddenly, the alarms fell silent. The red warning lights faded, replaced by the usual soft blue glow of the ship's systems. A collective sigh of relief echoed through the bridge. "I've managed to isolate the feedback loop and reset the harmonic resonance," Jack explained, wiping sweat from his brow. "The quantum drive should be stable now, but I'd recommend a full diagnostic to ensure there's no lasting damage." Captain Zorn stared at the human, his four eyes blinking in rapid succession. You did it," he said, his voice a mixture of disbelief and grudging admiration. "How?" Jack shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. "Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When faced with a problem, We tend to think outside the box. Vexlor chittered excitedly, his earlier skepticism forgotten. Fascinating. Your approach was most unorthodox, yet undeniably effective. I must learn more about these human methods. As the initial shock wore off, the bridge erupted into a flurry of activity. Crew members rushed to run diagnostics and assess the ship's status, while others peppered Jack with questions about his solution. Captain Zorn watched the scene unfold, his mind racing. He had severely underestimated the humans' capabilities. Perhaps there was more to these newcomers to the galactic stage than he had initially thought. "Mr. Cooper," Zorn said, approaching the human, "it seems I owe you an apology. Your quick thinking may have saved us all." Jack nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Captain. I'm just glad I could help." "Indeed," Zorn replied. "I believe we have much to learn from each other. Would you be willing to work more closely with our engineering team? Your unique perspective could prove invaluable." A broad grin spread across Jack's face. "I'd be honored, Captain. And please, call me Jack." As the human turned to join the engineering team, Captain Zorn couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. In all his years exploring the cosmos, he had never encountered a species quite like humans. Their ability to adapt, to find solutions where others saw only problems, was truly remarkable. The captain returned to his command chair, his gaze drifting to the vast star field visible through the bridge's view screen. The celestial Voyager had weathered this crisis, thanks to the ingenuity of its most unlikely crew member. Zorn couldn't help but wonder what other surprises lay in store as they continued their journey through the stars. Little did they know, this incident was just the beginning of a series of challenges that would test the limits of human ingenuity and forever change the dynamics between humans and their alien counterparts. As the ship's systems returned to normal, Jack found himself surrounded by curious alien crew members. They bombarded him with questions about Earth, human technology, and his unorthodox problem-solving methods. "How did you learn to interface with our system so quickly?" asked a serpentine alien with shimmering scales. Jack chuckled. "Humans are adaptable. We've had to be, given our relatively short history of space travel. We learn fast because we have to." An avian crew member tilted its feathered head. "But surely your technology is far behind ours. How could you understand our quantum drive systems?" "It's not about understanding every detail," Jack explained. "It's about recognizing patterns, making connections. Sometimes, not knowing all the rules allows you to think of solutions others might overlook." As the discussion continued, Captain Zorn observed from a distance. He couldn't shake the feeling that this human's presence would have far-reaching consequences for his crew and perhaps the entire Galactic Alliance. The crisis averted, the celestial Voyager resumed its journey through the cosmos. But the echoes of Jack's unexpected heroics would resonate throughout the ship, setting the stage for even greater challenges and revelations to come. Unorthodox methods. In the days following the quantum drive crisis, the atmosphere aboard the celestial Voyager had shifted noticeably. Jack Cooper, once an overlooked passenger, now found himself at the center of attention. The alien crew members regarded him with a mixture of curiosity and cautious respect, their previous dismissiveness replaced by a growing interest in human ingenuity. Captain Zorn had assigned Jack to work closely with the engineering team, much to Chief Engineer Vexlor's initial chagrin. The insectoid alien had prided himself on running the most efficient engine room in the Galactic Alliance fleet. The idea of a human, a member of a species barely out of their own solar system, offering insights into their advanced technology was almost insulting. Yet, as Jack integrated himself into the team, even Vexlor couldn't deny the human's unique contributions. One afternoon, as they were conducting a routine maintenance check on the quantum drive, Jack's unorthodox approach once again came to the forefront. "What in the name of the 7 moons are you doing?" Vexlor exclaimed, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. Jack looked up from where he was crouched next to an open panel, a strange device in his hand. It looked like a hodgepodge of spare parts, held together with what appeared to be a sticky substance. "Oh, this?" Jack grinned. "It's a makeshift harmonic resonator. I noticed that the quantum field fluctuations were causing micro-vibrations in the drive housing. This should help dampen them." Vexlor's compound eyes blinked in rapid succession. But we have state-of-the-art equipment for field stabilization. Why would you use that contraption?" Jack shrugged, fitting the device into place. "Sometimes simpler is better. This may not be as precise as your equipment, but it's more adaptable. It can adjust to sudden changes in the field without needing to be recalibrated." As if on cue, the quantum drive's hum changed subtly, becoming smoother and more consistent. Vexlor's antennae twitched in surprise as he checked the readings on his datapad. "Impossible," he muttered. "The field stability has improved by 7.3%. Jack stood up, dusting off his hands. "Not impossible, just a different way of looking at the problem." Word of Jack's improvised solution spread quickly through the ship. While some crew members were impressed by his creativity, others were skeptical, even concerned. The humans' methods were unpredictable, untested by their rigorous standards. What if his unconventional approaches led to disaster? These concerns reached Captain Zorn, who called Jack to his ready room for a private discussion. As Jack entered, he found the captain staring out at the stars, his 4 eyes reflecting the cosmic vista. "Mr. Cooper," Zorn began, turning to face him, "your recent innovations have caused quite a stir among the crew." Jack nodded, sensing the captain's unease. "I understand, sir. I know my methods might seem strange." "Strange?" Zorn interrupted. "They're downright baffling. You're bypassing centuries of established engineering protocols. It's unsettling." Jack took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Captain, humans have always had to adapt quickly to survive. Our history is full of moments where unconventional thinking saved us from disaster. It's ingrained in our nature." Zorn's upper eyes narrowed. "And what happens when one of these unconventional solutions fails? The safety of this ship and its crew is my primary concern." "I understand that, sir," Jack replied earnestly. "I would never suggest anything I wasn't confident in. But sometimes, taking a calculated risk can lead to breakthroughs we never imagined possible." The captain was silent for a moment, considering Jack's words. Finally, he sighed. "Very well, Mr. Cooper. I'll allow you to continue your work with the engineering team. But I want every modification, every improvisation thoroughly documented and approved before implementation. Is that clear?" "Crystal clear, sir," Jack agreed, relief evident in his voice. As Jack left the ready room, he couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. He had been given a chance to prove the value of human ingenuity, but he knew the stakes were high. One mistake could not only jeopardize his position, but also humanity's standing in the Galactic Alliance. Over the next few weeks, Jack worked tirelessly alongside the alien engineers. He introduced them to concepts like jury rigging and MacGyvering, much to their bewilderment and occasional amusement. Slowly but surely, some of the crew began to see the value in his approach. One of Jack's most vocal supporters was Lazara, a young Aquilian scientist with iridescent scales and webbed fingers. She had always been fascinated by alternative theories and was drawn to Jack's innovative thinking. "I've never seen anyone approach problems quite like you do," Lazara remarked one day as they worked together in the lab. "It's like you see connections that the rest of us miss." Jack smiled, looking up from the circuit board he was modifying. "That's kind of you to say. I think it's just that humans are used to working with limited resources. We've had to get creative to overcome our limitations." Lazara's gills fluttered in what Jack had come to recognize as a sign of excitement. "It's fascinating. I've been reading about Earth's history. Your species has come so far in such a short time. It's almost intimidating." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Intimidating? I would think that a species as advanced as yours would find us primitive in comparison." Lazara shook her head, her fins rippling. "That's just it. Many of our advancements came gradually, over thousands of years. But humans, you adapt so quickly. It's both impressive and, yes, a little frightening to some. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden lurch of the ship. Alarms blared as the lights flickered ominously. "What's happening?" Jack shouted over the noise. Lizara was already at a console, her webbed fingers flying over the controls. "We've entered an uncharted nebula. The energy readings are off the charts." As if to punctuate her words, another violent shake rocked the ship. Jack stumbled, catching himself on a nearby table. "The nebula's interfering with our shields," Lizara reported, her voice tense. "If we don't find a way to adapt quickly, the radiation will start to affect the crew." Jack's mind raced. The ship's standard shields weren't designed to handle this type of energy. They needed something more flexible, more human. "I have an idea," he said, already moving towards the lab's storage units. "But it's going to sound crazy." Lizara watched in amazement as Jack began pulling out various pieces of equipment, seemingly at random. "What are you doing?" "We're going to create a modulating shield frequency," Jack explained, his hands busy connecting wires and adjusting settings. "Instead of trying to block all the radiation, we'll let it think it's penetrating our defenses, then redirect it." Lizara's eyes widened. "But that's not how our shields work." Jack grinned despite the gravity of the situation. "Exactly. That's why it might just save us." As Jack worked feverishly to assemble his makeshift shield modulator, the ship continued to shake. Warning klaxons echoed through the corridors, and Jack could hear the panic in the voices of crew members rushing past the lab. "Lizara, I need you to help me interface this with the main shield generator," Jack said, holding up his completed device. It looked like a mess of wires and components, held together with what appeared to be chewing gum and hair ties. The Aquilian scientist hesitated for just a moment before nodding resolutely. "All right, let's do it." Together, they raced to the shield control room. The scene that greeted them was one of chaos. Alien crew members were frantically trying to reinforce the failing shields, their usual composure shattered by the unexpected crisis. "Stand aside," Jack shouted, pushing his way to the main console. Without waiting for permission, he began connecting his device to the ship's systems. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded a furious voice. Jack looked up to see Chief Engineer Vexlor looming over him, mandibles clicking in agitation. "Remove that primitive contraption at once." "There's no time to argue," Jack retorted, continuing his work. "This nebula is unlike anything in your databases. We need to think outside the box." Lizara stepped forward, placing herself between Jack and Vexlor. "Sir, please, let him try. Nothing else is working." For a tense moment, it seemed like Vexlor might physically remove Jack from the console. But another violent shake of the ship seemed to make the decision for him. "Very well," the chief engineer said grudgingly. "But if this fails, the consequences will be on your head, human." Jack nodded grimly, making the final connections. "Here goes nothing," he muttered, activating his device. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to change. The ship continued to shake, alarms blaring. Then, gradually, the tremors began to subside. The warning lights on the console started to shift from angry red to cautious yellow. "It's working," Lizara exclaimed, her fins rippling with excitement. "The radiation levels are dropping." Jack let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He watched the readouts carefully, making minor adjustments to his device. Slowly but surely, the ship's systems began to stabilize. As the crisis subsided, Jack became aware of the stunned silence that had fallen over the control room. He looked up to see every alien crew member staring at him in disbelief. Vexlor was the first to break the silence. How did you know that would work?" Jack shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. "I didn't, not for sure. But sometimes, when conventional methods fail, you have to be willing to take a leap of faith." The chief engineer's mandibles twitched in what Jack had come to recognize as a sign of grudging respect. It seems we have much to learn from you, human." As the tension in the room dissipated, replaced by a buzz of excited chatter, Jack caught Lazara's eye. The Aquilian scientist was beaming at him, her scales shimmering with an array of colors that he interpreted as joy and admiration. "That was incredible," she said, approaching him. "You've just revolutionized our understanding of shield technology." Jack felt a warmth spreading through his chest that had nothing to do with the recent crisis. "Thanks, Lazara. I couldn't have done it without your help." As the crew began the process of studying the nebula and Jack's improvised solution, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had proven, once again, the value of human ingenuity in the face of the unknown. Little did he know, this incident would be just the beginning of a series of challenges that would test not only his skills, but also the growing bond between him and his alien crewmates. The universe, it seemed, had many more surprises in store for the celestial voyager and its unlikely human hero. Race against time. The success of Jack's improvised shield modulator had earned him a newfound respect among the crew of the celestial voyager. Even Captain Zorn had begrudgingly acknowledged the value of the humans' unorthodox methods. However, this hard-won acceptance was about to be put to the test in ways none of them could have anticipated. Several weeks after the nebula incident, the ship was approaching a region of space known as the Void of Whispers. It was a vast expanse of nothingness, feared by even the most experienced space travelers for its unpredictable gravitational anomalies and inexplicable energy fluctuations. As the celestial voyager entered the outskirts of the void, an air of tension settled over the crew. Jack found himself working longer hours in the engine room, fine-tuning systems and preparing for any eventuality. It was during one of these late-night sessions that disaster struck. The ship lurched violently, throwing Jack against a bulkhead. Alarms blared as emergency lights bathed the engine room in an eerie red glow. "Status report," Jack shouted, pulling himself to his feet. Vexler's voice crackled over the intercom, tinged with panic. "We've been caught in some kind of temporal distortion. The quantum drive is destabilizing." Jack's heart raced as he rushed to the main engineering console. The readings were unlike anything he'd ever seen. The ship seemed to be existing in multiple time streams simultaneously, causing severe strain on all systems. "All hands, this is Captain Zorn." The captain's voice boomed through the ship-wide communication system. "We are facing a Level 1 emergency. Our top priority is stabilizing the quantum drive. Failure to do so within the next 3 hours will result in a catastrophic temporal implosion." Jack felt the weight of countless lives settle on his shoulders. He knew that the fate of the ship now rested largely on his ability to find a solution to this unprecedented crisis. "Vexler, Lazara, meet me in the main engine room," Jack called out over the comm. "We're going to need all hands on deck for this one." As his alien colleagues arrived, Jack was already deep in thought, his mind racing through potential solutions. The standard protocols for quantum drive stabilization were useless in this situation. They needed something radically different. "The temporal distortion is causing a phase shift in the drive's quantum matrix," Lazara reported, her fins quivering with tension. "We're essentially trying to exist in multiple timelines at once." Vexler's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Impossible. The drive wasn't designed to handle such stress. We need to shut it down immediately." Jack shook his head. "We can't. If we power down the drive while caught in this distortion, we'll be torn apart by the conflicting time streams." "Then what do you suggest, human?" Vexler demanded, his earlier respect giving way to frustration born of fear. Jack's eyes darted around the engine room, taking in the various components and spare parts. An idea began to form in his mind, wild and potentially dangerous, but possibly their only hope. "We need to embrace the temporal distortion," Jack said slowly, his excitement growing as the plan took shape. "Instead of fighting it, we use it to our advantage." Lazara and Vexler exchanged confused glances. "What do you mean?" Lazara asked. "We're going to build a temporal harmonizer," Jack explained, already moving to gather components. It'll synchronize the quantum drive with the multiple time streams, allowing us to navigate through them instead of being torn apart by them. Vexilor's compound eyes blinked rapidly. That's insane. Such a device has never been conceived, let alone built. Exactly, Jack grinned, despite the gravity of the situation. Which means the temporal distortion won't know how to react to it. It's our best shot. As Jack began to assemble his makeshift device, he outlined his plan to his colleagues. The temporal harmonizer would essentially trick the quantum drive into believing it was stable, while simultaneously allowing the ship to surf the waves of conflicting time streams. Lizara, I need you to recalibrate the quantum field generators to match these frequencies, Jack instructed, handing her a datapad with his calculations. Vexilor, we'll need to reroute power from non-essential systems to boost the harmonizer's output. As they worked feverishly against the clock, Jack could feel the ship groaning around them. The temporal distortion was getting worse, causing random objects to phase in and out of existence and creating unsettling echoes of past and future events. 2 hours into their 3-hour deadline, Jack's device was ready for testing. It was a hodgepodge of spare parts, experimental quantum tech, and what looked suspiciously like parts from the ship's food replicator. Are you certain about this, Jack? Lizara asked, her usual confidence wavering in the face of this unprecedented crisis. Jack met her gaze, trying to project a confidence he didn't entirely feel. No, I'm not certain. But I am hopeful. Sometimes that's all we humans have to go on. With a deep breath, Jack activated the temporal harmonizer. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ship shuddered violently, causing everyone to brace themselves against the nearest solid object. What's happening? Vexilor shouted over the din of groaning metal and blaring alarms. Jack's eyes were glued to the readouts, his hands flying over the controls as he made rapid adjustments. The harmonizer is working, but the temporal feedback is stronger than I anticipated. We need more power. Suddenly, Captain Zorn's voice crackled over the intercom. Engine room, report. We're detecting massive energy fluctuations. Captain, Jack responded, his voice strained with concentration. We've implemented an experimental solution. Request permission to divert all available power to the engine room. There was a moment of hesitation before Zorn replied. Granted. But Cooper, if this doesn't work. I know, Captain, Jack said grimly. Believe me, I know. As additional power flooded into the temporal harmonizer, the ship's bucking and shuddering intensified. Warning klaxons blared as systems all over the ship began to overload. Jack, we can't take much more of this. Lizara cried out, her scales flashing with patterns of distress. Just a little longer, Jack muttered, his fingers dancing across the controls. We're almost there. Suddenly, everything went quiet. The alarms ceased, the shaking stopped, and an eerie calm descended over the engine room. For a terrifying moment, Jack feared they had failed, that they were trapped in some kind of temporal limbo. Then, gradually, the normal hum of the ship's systems returned. The emergency lights faded, replaced by the standard illumination. Jack looked at the readouts and let out a whoop of joy. We did it, he exclaimed. We're clear of the temporal distortion. Lizara and Vexilor stared at him in disbelief before breaking into their species' equivalent of relieved laughter. The tension of the past 3 hours dissolved into a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Captain Zorn's voice came over the intercom once more, this time filled with a mixture of relief and awe. Engine room. I don't know how you did it, but sensors confirm we've cleared the void of whispers. Well done. As the reality of their narrow escape sank in, Jack found himself enveloped in a rather awkward group hug, with Lizara's cool, scaly arms and Vexilor's chitinous limbs wrapping around him. He couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. In the hours that followed, as the ship resumed its normal operations, Jack was called to the bridge to explain his solution to Captain Zorn and the senior staff. As he described the temporal harmonizer and the principles behind it, he could see a mix of confusion and admiration in the alien's eyes. "Mr. Cooper," Captain Zorn said when Jack had finished his explanation, "I must admit, when the Galactic Council insisted on including a human on this mission, I was skeptical. But you have proven your worth time and time again." Jack felt a surge of pride, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. "Thank you, Captain. I'm just glad I could help." "Help?" Vexlor interjected, his mandibles clicking in what Jack now recognized as excitement. "You've revolutionized our understanding of temporal mechanics. The implications of your temporal harmonizer are staggering." Lizara nodded enthusiastically. "We'll need to study it further, of course, but this could change the face of space travel as we know it." As the alien crew members began to discuss the potential applications of Jack's invention, he found himself overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just occurred. In the span of a few hours, he had not only saved the ship, but potentially advanced alien science by decades, if not centuries. Captain Zorn raised a hand, silencing the excited chatter. "While the scientific implications are indeed significant, let us not forget the more immediate impact. Mr. Cooper, your quick thinking, unconventional methods have saved this ship and all souls aboard. On behalf of the crew, and indeed the Galactic Alliance, I thank you." A round of alien applause filled the bridge, their various appendages creating the symphony of appreciation. Jack felt a lump form in his throat, touched by the acceptance and gratitude of his alien colleagues. As the excitement died down, and the crew returned to their duties, Jack found himself standing alone with Captain Zorn, gazing out at the star-filled view screen. "You've given us much to think about, Mr. Cooper," Zorn said quietly. "Perhaps we've been too set in our ways, too reliant on established protocols. Your human perspective has shown us the value of adaptability and creative thinking." Jack nodded, feeling the weight of the captain's words. "That's what humans do best, sir. We adapt, we innovate, we survive. It's gotten us this far." Zorn's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Jack had come to recognize as thoughtful consideration. "Indeed, I believe your presence on this ship will continue to challenge us, to push us beyond our perceived limitations. It may not always be comfortable, but it will undoubtedly be valuable." As Jack left the bridge, heading back to his quarters for some much-needed rest, he couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. He had come aboard the celestial Voyager as an outsider, viewed with skepticism and even disdain. Now he had earned his place among the stars, proving the worth of humanity to the wider galactic community. Yet, as he drifted off to sleep, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that their encounter with the Void of Whispers was just the beginning. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but also dangers beyond imagination. How would human ingenuity fare against the next challenge? Only time would tell. The revelation. In the weeks following the Void of Whispers incident, life aboard the celestial Voyager settled into a new rhythm. Jack found himself fully integrated into the ship's operations, his expertise sought after by crew members from all departments. The once skeptical aliens now looked to him with a mixture of respect and curiosity, eager to learn from his unique human perspective. However, this period of relative calm was not destined to last. As the ship ventured deeper into uncharted space, they encountered a phenomenon that would challenge even Jack's innovative thinking. It began with a series of inexplicable malfunctions throughout the ship. Systems would flicker on and off seemingly at random, and crew members reported strange sensations of déjà vu. At first, these occurrences were dismissed as residual effects from their brush with the temporal distortion. But as the incidents increased in frequency and severity, it became clear that something more sinister was at play. Captain Zorn called an emergency meeting of the senior staff. As Jack entered the conference room, he could feel the tension in the air. The captain's 4 eyes were narrowed in concern as he addressed the group. "We've detected an anomaly in subspace," Zorn began without preamble. "It appears to be some sort of tear in the fabric of reality itself." A collective gasp went up from the assembled aliens. Jack leaned forward, his mind already racing with possibilities. "What exactly are we dealing with, Captain?" he asked. Zorn gestured to the holographic display in the center of the table. A swirling vortex of energy appeared, its edges jagged and unstable. "We're calling it a reality fissure," the captain explained. "It's causing localized breakdowns in the laws of physics. If it continues to grow, it could threaten not just our ship, but potentially entire star systems." Jack studied the hologram intently. "Have you encountered anything like this before?" The alien crew members exchanged uneasy glances before Vexilor spoke up. "There are legends of similar phenomena in our oldest records, but they were always dismissed as myth. No one has ever documented a reality fissure until now." Lazara, her scales shimmering with anxiety, added, "Our sensors can barely make sense of the readings. It's as if the fissure is rewriting the rules of the universe around it." Jack felt a familiar mix of excitement and trepidation. This was precisely the kind of challenge that humans thrived on. The unknown, the impossible. But the stakes had never been higher. "What are our options?" he asked, looking around the table. Captain Zorn's expression was grim. Standard protocol would be to retreat and alert the Galactic Alliance. But given the fissure's rate of expansion, by the time reinforcements arrived, it might be too late. The room fell silent as the weight of the situation sank in. They were the only ship in the sector, possibly the only ones who could prevent a cosmic catastrophe. Jack's mind was whirling, piecing together fragments of ideas. "Captain, with your permission, I'd like to study the fissure more closely. Maybe if we understand how it's affecting our systems, we can find a way to counteract it." Zorn nodded. "Granted. But be careful, Mr. Cooper. We can't afford to lose you." Over the next several days, Jack worked tirelessly alongside Lazara and Vexilor, analyzing every scrap of data they could gather about the reality fissure. They set up a makeshift lab, filled with a hodgepodge of equipment from various departments. As they worked, Jack couldn't help but marvel at how far they'd come. Months ago, the idea of an alien crew deferring to a human's judgment would have been unthinkable. Now they worked seamlessly as a team, each bringing their unique strengths to bear on the problem. "Look at this," Lazara called out one day, her fins rippling with excitement. "The fissure isn't just affecting our ship. It's altering the quantum signatures of everything around it." Jack hurried over to her console, his eyes widening as he took in the data. "It's like it's trying to rewrite the fundamental code of the universe," he murmured. Vexilor chittered nervously. "How can we possibly combat something like that? We're just one ship." Jack was quiet for a moment, his brow furrowed in thought. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. "Maybe that's exactly what we need to be." His alien colleagues looked at him in confusion. "What do you mean?" Lazara asked. "Think about it," Jack said, his excitement growing. "The fissure is rewriting reality, right? But it's doing it chaotically, without purpose. What if we could introduce our own code into the mix?" Vexilor's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Are you suggesting we try to reprogram reality itself? That's insane." Jack finished for him, grinning. "Probably, but it might be our only shot." Over the next few hours, Jack outlined his plan to his bewildered colleagues. They would use the ship's quantum drive, combined with elements of the temporal harmonizer he had created, to generate a controlled reality field. This field would act as a buffer between normal space and the chaotic energy of the fissure. "If we can stabilize the boundary between realities," Jack explained, "we might be able to contain the fissure, maybe even close it entirely." The plan was met with a mixture of skepticism and cautious hope. It was unprecedented, bordering on the impossible. But given the stakes, even the most conservative members of the crew were willing to give it a try. As they prepared to implement Jack's plan, the reality fissure continued to grow. Strange phenomena began to manifest throughout the ship. Crew members reported seeing ghostly apparitions of themselves, Objects would spontaneously change form, and in some sections of the ship, the laws of physics seemed to break down entirely. Finally, after days of feverish work, they were ready. The celestial Voyager positioned itself at the edge of the fissure, its modified systems humming with barely contained power. All hands, brace for reality stabilization. Captain Zorn's voice echoed through the ship. "Mr. Cooper, you may proceed when ready." Jack took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the activation control. He looked at Lizara and Vexilor, who nodded encouragingly. "Here goes everything," he muttered, and pressed the button. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The ship shuddered as waves of energy pulsed from its hull. The view screen showed a dazzling display of light and color as their artificial reality field collided with the chaotic energy of the fissure. For several tense minutes, it seemed as though the ship might be torn apart. Warning klaxons blared as systems throughout the vessel strained under the immense stress. Jack worked furiously at the controls, making split-second adjustments to keep their field stable. Then, gradually, the turbulence began to subside. The readings on their instruments started to stabilize, and the violent flashes of light outside the ship calmed into a steady, pulsing glow. "It's working," Lysara exclaimed, her scales flashing with patterns of joy and disbelief. "The fissure is beginning to contract." Jack allowed himself a moment of relief, but he knew their task wasn't finished yet. "We need to maintain the field until the fissure is completely closed," he said, his voice tense with concentration. "Otherwise, it could reopen, possibly even larger than before." For hours, they held their position, pouring every ounce of the ship's energy into maintaining the reality field. The crew worked in shifts, with Jack refusing to leave his post, despite his evident exhaustion. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Vexilor announced, "Fissure closure at 99%, 99.5%, 100%. The anomaly has been sealed." A cheer went up throughout the ship as the view screen showed empty, stable space where the reality fissure had once been. Jack slumped in his chair, physically and mentally drained, but filled with an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. Captain Zorn's voice came over the intercom, filled with a warmth that Jack had never heard before. "Mr. Cooper, you've done it again. You've saved not just our ship, but potentially countless worlds. On behalf of the entire crew, and dare I say the galaxy itself, thank you." As the initial excitement died down, and the ship began to return to normal operations, the full impact of what they had achieved began to sink in. They had not just closed a reality fissure, they had fundamentally altered their understanding of the universe itself. In the days that followed, Jack found himself working closely with the ship's scientific team to document and analyze what had occurred. The implications of their success were staggering. "Do you realize what this means?" Lysara asked him one day as they pored over the data. "We've essentially proven that reality itself is mutable, that the fundamental laws of the universe can be rewritten." Jack nodded, still trying to wrap his head around the concept. "It's like we've discovered a new layer of physics," he mused. "A meta-layer that governs how reality itself functions." Vexilor, who had joined them, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "The potential applications are, well, nearly infinite. We could potentially create pocket universes, manipulate the flow of time and space, or cause untold destruction if this knowledge falls into the wrong hands," Jack added soberly. The others nodded in agreement, the weight of their discovery settling on their shoulders. As news of their accomplishment spread throughout the ship, Jack found himself the center of attention once again. But this time, it was different. The looks of awe and respect he received from the alien crew were tinged with something new, a sense of kinship, of shared achievement. One evening, as Jack was enjoying a quiet moment in the ship's observation lounge, Captain Zorn joined him. They stood in companionable silence for a while, gazing out at the stars. Finally, Zorn spoke. "You know, Mr. Cooper, when this mission began, I had my doubts about including a human in our crew. Your species is so young, so new to the galactic stage. I feared you might be a liability. Jack turned to look at the captain, surprised by his candor. Zorn continued, his 4 eyes reflecting the starlight. But you have proven me wrong at every turn. Your human ingenuity, your ability to think beyond established paradigms, these are not weaknesses, but strengths. Strengths that we, in our long-established civilizations, had perhaps forgotten. The captain turned to face Jack fully. I believe your presence on this ship, your contributions to our mission, mark a turning point not just for humanity, but for the entire Galactic Alliance. You've shown us that there is always more to learn, always new frontiers to explore, both in the cosmos and within ourselves. Jack felt a lump form in his throat, moved by the captain's words. Thank you, sir, he managed to say. I'm just glad I could help. Zorn made a gesture that Jack had come to recognize as the alien equivalent of a smile. You've done more than help, Mr. Cooper. You've changed the course of history. And I, for one, am excited to see where this new course will lead us. As they turned back to the viewport, Jack felt a sense of wonder wash over him. He had come aboard the Celestial Voyager as an outsider, a representative of a species barely known to the galactic community. Now he stood as a valued crew member, a pioneer in a new field of science, and a bridge between humanity and the wider universe. The stars stretched out before them, endless and inviting. And for the first time, Jack truly felt that humanity had found its place among them. A new perspective. The Celestial Voyager's groundbreaking encounter with the reality fissure marked a pivotal moment not just for the ship's crew, but for the entire Galactic Alliance. As they made their way back to Alliance space, the implications of their discovery began to unfold in ways that no one, not even Jack, could have anticipated. The ship buzzed with excitement and speculation. Crew members from all species gathered in the mess hall and recreation areas, engaging in animated discussions about the potential applications of their newfound ability to manipulate the fabric of reality itself. Some spoke of revolutionary advancements in medicine and technology, while others dreamed of exploring alternate dimensions or even creating new universes. Jack found himself at the center of these discussions, often sought out for his insights and ideas. It was a strange feeling for the human who had once been viewed with skepticism and even disdain. Now, his alien colleagues hung on his every word, eager to tap into the wellspring of human creativity and innovation that he represented. One evening, as Jack was enjoying a quiet moment in the ship's arboretum, he was approached by Lazara. The Aquilian scientist's scales shimmered with a pattern that Jack had come to recognize as a mix of excitement and nervousness. Jack, she began, her fins rippling slightly. I've been thinking about what we discovered, about the mutability of reality. There's something I need to show you. Intrigued, Jack followed Lazara to her personal lab. As the door slid shut behind them, she activated a holographic display. A complex web of equations and diagrams sprang to life in the air between them. I've been working on this in my spare time, Lazara explained, her voice hushed with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Based on our findings, I believe it might be possible to create a device that could, well, reshape reality on a local scale. Jack's eyes widened as he studied the display. You mean like a portable version of what we did with the ship? Lazara nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. Imagine the possibilities, Jack. We could terraform inhospitable planets in a matter of days, heal injuries by rewriting the patient's personal timeline, even prevent natural disasters by altering the fundamental properties of matter in a specific area. As Jack absorbed the implications of Lazara's work, he felt a familiar mix of excitement and unease. The potential for good was immense, but so too was the potential for catastrophic misuse. This is incredible, Lazara, he said carefully. But have you considered the ethical implications, the risk if this technology fell into the wrong hands? Lazara's fins drooped slightly. I have. That's why I wanted to show you first. Your human perspective, your ability to see possibilities and pitfalls that we might miss, I think it's crucial as we move forward with this research. Jack nodded, touched by Lazara's trust in him. You're right. This isn't something we can keep to ourselves, but we need to approach it carefully. We should bring this to Captain Zorn and discuss how to present it to the Galactic Alliance. Over the next few days, Jack, Lazara, and a select group of the ship's senior staff worked to prepare a comprehensive report on their discoveries and the potential applications of reality manipulation technology. The mood was a mixture of excitement and trepidation. They all understood that they stood on the brink of a new era in galactic civilization. As they neared Alliance space, Captain Zorn called a ship-wide meeting. The entire crew gathered in the main hangar bay, a sea of diverse alien forms with Jack standing out as the sole human among them. Zorn's voice echoed through the cavernous space. "Crew of the Celestial Voyager, we have witnessed and accomplished things on this mission that were once thought impossible. We have peered beyond the veil of reality itself and returned with knowledge that will reshape our understanding of the universe." The captain's 4 eyes swept across the assembled crew before settling on Jack. "And we owe much of this to the innovative spirit and adaptability of our human crew member, Jack Cooper. He has shown us that there is great strength in diversity, that new perspectives can lead to extraordinary breakthroughs." A ripple of agreement passed through the crowd. Jack felt a swell of pride, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. Zorn continued, his tone growing more serious. "But with great discovery comes great responsibility. The knowledge we now possess has the potential to revolutionize life throughout the galaxy. It also has the potential for immense harm if misused. As we prepare to share our findings with the Galactic Alliance, I ask each of you to consider carefully the implications of what we have learned." The captain's words hung in the air, and Jack could see the weight of them settling on each crew member. They had embarked on this mission as explorers and scientists. They would return as the custodians of knowledge that could reshape the very fabric of existence. As the Celestial Voyager docked at the Galactic Alliance's central space station, Jack felt a mix of emotions: pride in what they had accomplished, excitement for the future, and a touch of anxiety about how their discoveries would be received. The next few days were a whirlwind of debriefings, presentations, and intense discussions with Alliance officials. Jack found himself standing before the Galactic Council itself, explaining concepts that pushed the boundaries of known science. To his surprise and relief, the Council seemed genuinely open to the ideas he presented. There were, of course, concerns raised about the potential dangers, but overall, there was a sense of cautious optimism about the possibilities this new field of study presented. As the official proceedings wound down, Jack was approached by an elderly alien of a species he didn't recognize. The being's form seemed to shimmer and shift, as if it wasn't quite solid. "Greetings, Jack Cooper of Earth," the alien said, its voice resonating in Jack's mind rather than his ears. "I am Zylthera, keeper of cosmic knowledge. Your discoveries have sent ripples through the very fabric of space-time itself." Jack bowed slightly, unsure of the proper protocol. "It's an honor to meet you, Keeper. I hope our findings will be of benefit to the Alliance." Zylthera's form pulsed with what Jack interpreted as amusement. "Oh, they will be, young one. But perhaps not in the way you imagine. Tell me, what do you think is the greatest gift your species brings to the galactic community?" Jack thought for a moment. "Our adaptability. Our creativity." "Close," Zylthera replied. "It is your perspective. You humans view the universe with fresh eyes, unencumbered by eons of established thought. You see possibilities where others see only immutable laws. This is a precious gift indeed." The Keeper's form shimmered more intensely. "The Galactic Alliance has long debated whether humanity was ready to join our community. Your actions aboard the Celestial Voyager have not only proven your readiness, but have shown that we need you far more than we realized." Jack felt a wave of emotions wash over him: pride, humility, and a deep sense of responsibility. "What happens now?" he asked. Zylthera's response came with a sense of warmth and encouragement. "Now we learn from each other. The Alliance will establish new research initiatives, with humans working alongside other species to explore the frontiers of reality manipulation. But more importantly, we will seek to cultivate the unique human perspective across all fields of study. As Jack left the meeting with Zoelthura, his mind reeling from the implications of their conversation, he found Lizara and Vexillor waiting for him. "Well?" Lizara asked, her scales shimmering with anticipation. "How did it go?" Jack smiled, still processing everything himself. "It went well. Really well, actually. It seems we've opened up a whole new chapter for the Alliance, and for humanity." Vexillor's mandibles clicked in what Jack now recognized as excitement. "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm eager to work with more humans. Your species brings a refreshing unpredictability to scientific endeavors." As they walked together through the space station, Jack couldn't help but marvel at how far they'd come. What had started as a reluctant acceptance of a single human on a deep space mission had blossomed into a new era of interspecies collaboration. In the weeks that followed, Jack found himself at the forefront of a new initiative to integrate human perspectives into various Alliance projects. He worked tirelessly, bridging the gap between human intuition and alien logic, finding innovative solutions to problems that had long been considered unsolvable. One evening, as Jack stood in the observation deck of the Alliance headquarters, gazing out at the spectacular view of swirling galaxies and newborn stars, he felt a presence beside him. It was Captain Zorn. "Quite a view, isn't it, Mr. Cooper?" the captain said, his 4 eyes reflecting the cosmic panorama. Jack nodded. "It never gets old. No matter how far we travel or how much we discover, the universe always has something new to show us." Zorn made a sound that Jack had come to recognize as a chuckle, a very human perspective, and one that I've come to appreciate greatly. The captain turned to face Jack fully. "I've been offered command of a new ship, you know. A joint human alliance vessel, dedicated to pushing the boundaries of our reality manipulation research." Jack's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Congratulations, Captain. That's quite an honor." "Indeed," Zorn replied. "And I'd like you to be my first officer." For a moment, Jack was speechless. When he found his voice, it was thick with emotion. I'd be honored, Captain. But are you sure? There must be more qualified candidates." Zorn's upper eyes narrowed in what Jack now knew was a smile. "Qualified in the traditional sense, perhaps, but you, Jack Cooper, bring something far more valuable, the human spark. That indefinable quality that allows you to see solutions where others see only problems, to imagine possibilities beyond the realm of established thought." The captain gestured to the vast expanse of space before them. "We stand on the brink of a new era, Mr. Cooper, one where the very fabric of reality is ours to shape. We'll need human ingenuity more than ever as we navigate these uncharted waters." Jack felt a swell of pride and determination. He thought back to his first days aboard the celestial Voyager, how far he had come, and how far humanity had come in the eyes of the galactic community. "I accept, Captain," Jack said, straightening his posture. "When do we start?" Zorn's eyes twinkled with an almost human-like excitement. "We've already begun, Mr. Cooper. The universe awaits." As they stood there, human and alien side by side, gazing out at the infinite possibilities stretching before them, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and he had played a part in paving the way. The journey ahead would be challenging, filled with wonders and dangers beyond imagination. But with human creativity and alien wisdom working in harmony, Jack knew they were ready to face whatever the cosmos had in store. As the starlight glimmered off distant worlds, Jack Cooper, once an outsider, now a bridge between species, smiled. The greatest adventure was just beginning.